we as a community need to put some more respect on Luffy. In the world of One Piece, our goofy rubber boy is simply unprecedented. Today, I don't want to focus on Luffy's physical power, or his character development, or his unparalleled ability to garner allies and make people root for him. Instead, I want to focus on Luffy's journey and the countless feats he has under his belt. Not power scaling feats, but genuine accomplishments in the world on a global scale. Based on everything we know so far, characters like Shanks, Blackbeard, Dragon, Whitebeard, even the former Pirate King, Roger himself, don't come close to Luffy when it comes to the ridiculous things he's performed in the short span of only a few years. And that's with the majority of that time being spent training in hiding. Luffy has not only made history time and time again throughout One Piece, but has done things that was so insane the government was forced to erase history, something they've only done for the Void Century and Zebek. In the current generation of pirates, Luffy is number one, but I hope to argue that he is number one in the entire history of the universe, or at least he's going to be. We're going to talk about all of this and more in this video, and hopefully by the end, I'll tie everything into my interpretation of Luffy as the chosen one, the warrior of liberation who will inevitably end the multiple centuries of the world government's tyranny and bring freedom to everybody across the globe. Some of you guys might think I'm crazy for some of the statements I have already made. Luffy has accomplished more than Roger, the literal pirate king who ushered in the great age of piracy. It sounds insane, especially since Luffy hasn't even reached Laugh Tale and became the pirate king yet. But it's true, undeniably true, I'd argue. So let's break down Luffy's journey and get into the nitty-gritty of it all. The story begins and our 17-year-old protagonist with a Paramecia devil fruit embarks on his journey to become the Pirate King. Within the span of what we can only assume to be less than a couple of weeks, he completely dominates one of the 5 major seas that composes the entire One Piece world, the East Blue. Granted, this is considered the weakest of the 4 blues, but it's still very noteworthy that this kid just shows up out of nowhere and defeats 3 of the most infamous pirates of the East Blue. And he does that pretty easily. He doesn't face his first real adversary until a little later down the line. He's given a bounty of 30 million berry and arrives at the final stop in the East Blue, Logtown. The thing about Logtown is that it contains a marine base commanded by a Logia Devil Fruit user by the name of Smoker. This guy is simply out of Luffy's league for now. Without Haki, he can't even land an attack on him, and he doesn't learn Haki until much later down the line. This is all worth noting because Smoker has transformed Logtown into a place where not a single pirate has ever been able to escape under his rule, ending their dreams of finding the One Piece before they can even embark on their journeys in the Grand Line. But despite that, Luffy manages to escape. He is an exception to this rule. By some kind of twist of fate and the help of his father, who he hasn't seen since he went to go get milk all those years ago, he manages to escape and for the first of many times in this story, makes history, becoming the first pirate to escape Logtown under Smoker's rule, among the many others who were only able to escape because Smoker was completely fixated on Luffy. This bothers Smoker so much, he follows Luffy into the Grand Line and we enter the Arabasta saga. Luffy befriends a giant whale, 2 literal giants, and then frees an entire kingdom from the tyrannical rule of Wapol, whom he sends flying so far into the sky you'd think he entered another dimension. In Arabasta, he meets his first real adversary, Crocodile of the Shichibukai. This guy beats Luffy twice before Luffy finally wins. Defeating Crocodile is a huge deal. Not only does Luffy free a kingdom from a tyrannical ruler once again, but this guy is a warlord, one of the 3 great powers that kept the world in balance alongside Marine Headquarters and the Yonko. Not only does he defeat Crocodile, but this event is completely erased from history by the world government, meaning Luffy's actions were so ridiculous they had to be kept a secret. After this, he leaves the Blue Sea through the Knockup Stream and finds himself in the sky. He frees yet another kingdom from a tyrannical ruler, this time a self-proclaimed god with a lightning Logia Devil Fruit. He comes back to the Blue Sea and we get the Water 7 saga, where Luffy really starts to show signs of him simply being built different to everybody who came before him and probably everybody who will come after him. He survives an encounter against a Navy admiral, mainly because Aokiji didn't really want to kill them, but it's still noteworthy, especially for the ultimate point of this video. Alongside his crew, the Frankie family, and the shipwrights of the Galela company, he storms Enies Lobby, which isn't just any island. It's one of the world government's 3 major strongholds, an area that had been considered an impenetrable fortress until Luffy arrived and not only defeated all of CP9 but inadvertently destroyed the entire island with the Buster Call. Then he arrives at Thriller Bark and defeats yet another member of the Shichibukai, Gecko Moria. Much like the events of Arabasta, this event was completely erased from history. Following this is Sabodi, where Luffy finally receives his first real loss of the series and his entire crew is completely defeated by the warlord Kuma and the Admiral Kizaru, ultimately sending them all to different locations around the world. Luffy arrives at Amazon Lily where he befriends Boa Hancock, another Shichibukai who breaks countless laws out of her love for him. She helps him sneak into Impel Down, the second of the 3 major world government strongholds in the One Piece world. And he doesn't just sneak into the prison and covertly attempt to free Ace. Instead, Luffy causes unprecedented havoc and frees hundreds of criminals before going to Marineford, the last of the 3 major strongholds, and storming that as well, right in the middle of an all-out war between one of the emperors and the entirety of Marine Headquarters' strongest forces. We all know how Marineford goes and how it ends, but despite it serving as a huge loss and big wake-up call for Luffy, just the fact he managed to enter this war and escape with his life is enough of a testament to his legendary activity in the One Piece world. He showcases Conqueror's Haki in front of the world's strongest forces, escapes the blade of the world's strongest swordsman, and gains the aid of the perceived world's strongest man. Then Luffy spends 2 years training, a lot of that time under the former right hand of the Pirate King, the Dark King Rayleigh. After the time skip, Luffy returns to Sabodi to finish what he started. He makes it to Fishman Island, defeats 2 major threats who have been causing so many problems on the island for years, and in turn gains the love and support of the entire kingdom. He talks shit to Big Mom, one of the Yonko, and replaces her as the pirate ruler of the island, making Fishman Island his territory. He goes on to Punk Hazard, where he defeats one of the most dangerous scientists on the planet and frees countless children who have been experimented on. He allies with Trafalgar Law, a member of the worst generation and yet another member of the Shichibukai. He goes to Dressrosa where he defeats yet another member of the 7 warlords and frees the country from their many years of oppression under the tyrannical rule of Doflamingo. He goes to Zor, links up with the Minx and gets his first road poneglyph rubbing. He storms Whole Cake Island, territory of Big Mom. He not only defeats her strongest commander and takes a rubbing of her road poneglyph, but he destroys all of her plans and escapes in one piece. He goes to Wano, defeats Kaido, the Yonko, and perceived world's strongest creature, gets another poneglyph rubbing, and oh yeah, he frees yet another kingdom from decades of tyranny and oppression. And finally, we arrive at the latest arc where Luffy has been crowned an emperor and is currently helping the most dangerous scientist on the planet, Dr. Vegapunk. Okay, so what was the point of this extensive summary going through almost everything Luffy has ever done? Well, let's summarize the summary. The passage of time in One Piece is pretty garbage, but most fans agree that the events of pre-time skip were about 8 months long, and post-time skip so far seems to be about 3 months long. Let's round that up to a year. For just 1 year, the Straw Hats have been active on the seas. In this time, Luffy has infiltrated and escaped all 3 major world government strongholds. He has saved Orange Town from Buggy, Syrup Village from Kuro, Baratie from Don Krieg, Kokoyashi Village and all the other villages on the island from Arlong, Drum Island from Wapol, Arabasta from Crocodile, Skypiea from Enel, Robin from the entire world government, all the people with their shadows stolen on Thriller Bark from Moria, Fishman Island from Hody and Vanda Decken, the kids in Punk Hazard from Caesar, Dressrosa from Doflamingo, and Wano Kuni from Kaido. Now he's trying to save Vegapunk from the world government in a similar fashion to how he saved Robin. To do all of this, he defeated 3 warlords, befriended 3 other warlords, with one of them even joining his crew, and defeated Kaido, a Yonko, Big Mom, another Yonko, was also defeated as a result of his actions. She would have never been in Wano if not for Luffy, and Kid would still be rotting in the Udon prison. All of these insane accomplishments are easy to forget because there's so much context behind each of them and they weren't easily done by any means. But despite that, is there a single character in the series who even begins to compare to Luffy in this regard? Who else has this many feats under their belt? Even Roger, the former Pirate King, is implied to have covertly infiltrated Whole Cake Island to steal Big Mom's rolled poneglyph, a much smarter and tactical approach than anything Luffy has ever done, but also far less remarkable. Don't get me wrong, I'm not shitting on Roger. He's only behind Luffy as the most accomplished figure in One Piece's history, and when we find out about the Void Century and what Joy Boy was like, he'll probably be right up there with them as well. Those three characters have been connected by fate over generations, and in one regard, Roger sticks out the most. His public execution was the biggest mistake the world government ever made. His final words were simply too open and accessible to the rest of the world, making his name a legend that everybody knows about. But Joy Boy was completely wiped from history, and Luffy has also followed in his footsteps in some regards. His bounty over the course of the story is a pretty good indicator of this. It always feels like it's undermining his true threat level. Even now, 3 billion might seem like a huge number, but the fact he shares the same bounty as Law and Kid is very questionable. It's almost as if the world government are trying to perpetuate this idea that Luffy is comparable to those two. Just another pirate making a name for himself who managed to take down an emperor. But we know that this isn't the truth. We know Luffy is a much bigger threat than Kid and Law combined. They don't have Robin on their crews, they don't have the Nika fruit, they don't have the world's worst criminal as a father and his second in command as a sworn brother, just to name a few things. My ultimate point with this video isn't that Luffy is more impressive than legendary figures like Roger, Whitebeard and Shanks to us as readers, but rather to the world government. And the average civilian in the One Piece world wants everything about him is fully unmasked and made public knowledge. The things Luffy has accomplished on paper are simply unprecedented. There's nobody who comes close, and this is very purposeful on Oda's part. Luffy has and will continue to be depicted as a one-of-a-kind entity in the world of One Piece, who simply nobody can compare to. And yes, all of this was extremely difficult for him to achieve. We know that better than anybody in the story itself. We've actually seen every step of the way. But people in the One Piece world, they can only know as much as they've been told. And once they've been told everything about Luffy, to them it's gonna feel like Luffy's been chosen by some kind of force or supernatural entity, by fate itself. And fate has actually taken the form of a tangible thing in this case. The mythical Zoan type devil fruit, the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. People don't like to hear the words fate or destiny when talking about One Piece because this story heavily advocates for free will and the ability to shape your own life through choices. One Piece argues that we are all moral agents capable of shaping our own life paths, and the biggest example of this is Luffy himself. The same person I'm arguing has been chosen by fate. This is a clear contradiction. To be chosen by fate for some higher purpose, but simultaneously have paved your own life path. So people automatically dislike this notion, which is definitely understandable. But I'd argue this kind of thematic clash is usually where storytelling thrives the most. And I also believe it's pretty much guaranteed that this idea will be central to Luffy's character as the story continues. Luffy has always had unprecedented portrayal in comparison to other characters in the story. He's the grandson of the hero of the Marines, Garp. He's the son of Dragon, the world's worst criminal and infamous leader of the Revolutionary Army. He's the sworn brother of both Portugast the Ace, the son of the Pirate King himself, and Sabo, the second in command of the Revolutionaries. He has the Will of D in his name. He has Shanks, an Emperor of the Seas, to look up to and admire as a role model. He has the right-hand man of the former Pirate King training him and teaching him about Haki. All of these things make him seem special, but at the same time, Luffy has never cared about all of these things. He has never acknowledged the greater implications of all these relationships and legendary figures in his life. It all seems pretty normal to him. This is an intentional conflict that Oda has written into his character to play both sides, to say that Luffy was never meant to be a normal kid. He was always written to be someone special, someone extraordinary, designed for a higher purpose, but at the same time doing everything because he wants to, and that's just the person he is. A predetermined course of events shaping Luffy's life and making him the person he is, this chosen one who will free the entire world from the tyranny of the world government, should be fairly believable, but it isn't. Many fans oppose this idea because of shonen stigmas and all the slander Naruto has received for being a quote-unquote ninja Jesus. They don't want Luffy to be a pirate Jesus, and therein lies the problem, the stigmas, the tropes, this obsession with completely writing off certain concepts before they've even had the chance to prove themselves. This video is basically a big rant about the One Piece community and manga fans with a very one-track mindset. As things are right now, Luffy is very clearly the chosen one. I've actually made a video about this very topic in the past following the reveal of Gear 5th. It bothers me that people don't like the idea of Luffy being this chosen one because they're too hung up on their singular interpretation of the trope. I will always believe that execution trumps all in storytelling. The thing that matters most in a story isn't what is being delivered but how it's being delivered. And so far I'd say Oda has been doing a pretty good job with Luffy. I don't think anybody would disagree that Luffy is a moral agent. He has done everything he has done because he sticks firmly to his ideals and belief system. He has his own philosophies, his own desires, and his own morals. And at the same time, he's the person the world has been waiting for, the one who will bring the dawn. How these two seemingly contradictory ideas will coexist and complement each other is something we've yet to see. And it's exactly what I'm looking forward to actually see how Oda balances this inherent conflict and the ultimate message he is delivering with Luffy's character. Joy Boy seems to be a title rather than a singular entity. This is best seen when King thought Kaido could be Joy Boy, or when Kaido said to Luffy, I guess you couldn't be Joy Boy either. It seems like the key behind becoming Joy Boy is Luffy's devil fruit, but only once awakened, which is a very crucial nuance. It is not as simple as just, oh, I'm gonna eat this Nika fruit and that's gonna make me Joy Boy. We still don't know what it takes to awaken the devil fruit, and it was made very clear that Luffy was recognized as Joy Boy only once he awakened the fruit. Gear 5th is what created the drums of liberation and made Zunisha realize that Joy Boy had returned. I suspect that the fruits awakened because of who Luffy is, the perfect candidates for Joy Boy. We owe all there is to desire. Vegapunk revealed that devil fruits are intrinsically linked to the desires of man, or at least that's his theory. If that's anything to go off of, then that means Luffy's disposition, his temperament, and his ideals, the person he is, his desires, are exactly what awakened the Nika fruits and brought Joy Boy back into the world once more, a combination of his own free will and his destiny to be the chosen one.